What 100% fact is the hardest to believe? A moose can dive underwater down to nearly 20 feet in search of food. Just think about that. You're snorkeling in 6 meters of water, and as you turn, you notice the fucking moose eating seaweed behind you. It's brown water time. It took humans more time to go from bronze swords to steel swords than steel swords to nuclear bombs. Proving how much more effective steel swords are. I'm not so sure about that. Look at how long copper swords protected us from nuclear bombs. The Australian funnel web spider is often regarded as the world's deadliest and hasn't had a confirmed kill in over 40 years since the antivenom was created. No trace, no witnesses. We call that a professional. The same with orcas. They have no confirmed kills because they don't leave witnesses. From the time it was discovered to the time it lost its status as a planet, Pluto made it less than a third of the way around the Sun. Mammoths were alive when the Great Pyramid was being built. We are closer historically to Cleopatra than she was to the Great Pyramid. We're closer in time to the T-Rex than the T-Rex is to a Stegosaurus. Dragonflies accelerate at up to 4G and corner at up to 9G. Dragonflies are also the most efficient hunter, catching up to 95% of prey. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's because they are one of the very few insects that plots an intercept course instead of just chasing their prey. You are correct. They predict and anticipate high-speed movements, and instead of chasing their prey, they outmaneuver it. There is enough water in Lake Superior to cover North and South America in water 1 foot deep. The loudest sound in recorded history was the Krakatoa volcanic eruption of 1883. It ruptured the eardrums of people more than 40 miles from the epicenter, created a sound wave that circled the globe 7 times, and could be heard all the way in New York City, a short 10,000 miles away. I still do not understand how this is possible, and how we haven't been able to hear something similar since. Well, the Krakatoa eruption occurred because the volcano basically broke a hole open in underwater. Seawater rushed in, flashed to steam, but was, briefly, contained by the weight of all the rock and mass of much of the top of the mountain. So the pressures that built up inside the mountain as all this steam pressed against rock continued until it basically shattered the mountain from the inside out. The conditions that created Krakatoa were rather rare, and hopefully aren't going to be repeated anytime soon. That eruption is believed to have been 310 decibels loud. For reference, the human voice shouting can be about 110 decibels. And decibels volume goes up tenfold for every 10 decibels added. It's a weird system. In fact, the second loudest sound was from the Tsar Bomba, which was 224 decibels, meaning that eruption, at 310 dB, was more than 100 million times louder than the strongest nuke ever made. I'm still in awe that mantis shrimp can punch with the force of a .22 caliber bullet. Sharks are older than the rings of Saturn. Sharks are also older than trees. For the curious, Moon 4.5 billion years ago. First single-cell organism 3.5 billion years ago. First complex organism, simple sponges, 600 million years ago. Sharks 450 million years ago. Millipedes first land animal 428 million years ago. Trees 400 million years ago. Saturn rings 10 to 100 million years ago. First human-like 2.4 to 1.4 million years ago. The leading cause of death for pregnant women is murder. Also leading cause of death for women at work is murder. Ciabatta bread was invented in 1982. It's advertised and perceived as this traditional, rustic Italian bread that peasants must have enjoyed, but nope, created in the 1980s. There are more trees on Earth than stars in the Milky Way, roughly by a factor of 10. What? I looked it up. 300 billion stars, 3 trillion trees. Checks out. What the hell? That's comforting at least. A man, Michel Lotito, ate an entire airplane. It took him 2 years. Wait, so he literally ate scrap metal? Metal, glass, leather, you name it. More specifically, everything he has eaten. 18 bicycles, 15 shopping carts, 7 TV sets, 6 chandeliers, 2 beds, 1 pair of skis, 1 computer, 1 Cessna 150 light aircraft, 1 waterbed, 500 meters, 1,600 feet of steel chain, 1 coffin with handles, 1 Guinness Award plaque, 45 door hinges. Clouds weigh hundreds of thousands of pounds, full of water, effortlessly floating above our heads. No support, no structure, just weight, floating around above us, and we're like, yep, totally believable, because they're clouds, duh. I would love to understand more about this. Never even crossed my mind, but that seems pretty amazing now that I think about it. This is kind of a funny way of looking at things. Clouds are actually relatively light, lighter than all of the air beneath them anyway, otherwise they wouldn't float. The really unbelievable thing is that we live at the bottom of a 6,214-mile deep ocean of air. If you weighed a 1-inch column of air from the surface to space, it'd weigh about 14.7 pounds. If you weighed the entire atmosphere around the planet, it'd be about 5.5 quadrillion tons. We are the weird shit at the bottom of the sea. For 60 million years, there was no bacteria, fungus, anything to decompose trees. They just got crushed under the weight of other dead trees. This is where about 90% of coal comes from. The circulatory system, arteries, veins, and capillaries, is more than 60,000 miles long. Fun fact, if you took your intestines and laid them end to end, you would die. Every 60 seconds in Africa, a minute passes. These may be fun facts, but at the end of the day, it's night. That a spy named Joan Pujol Garcia was awarded the highest honor of service from both the Allies and Axis in the Second World War. I play both sides, so I always come out on top. Wasn't actually the highest honor of service, but he was awarded for service both by Germany and the UK. It's not that he was actually playing both sides. It's that he intentionally set himself up as a double agent, working for the UK while pretending to work for Germany. He did such a good job feeding a mixture of real and fake info to Germany that they never caught on that he was working against them, and ended up being instrumental in the British intelligence operation to mislead the Germans about where the D-Day landings would take place. There are more libraries in the US than McDonald's or Starbucks. Tsutomu Yamaguchi was in Hiroshima on a business trip, and on the day he was supposed to leave, the atomic bomb dropped. He survived with minor injuries and returned to his home in Nagasaki, where he went to work 3 days later. As he was describing his experience to his supervisor, the second bomb was dropped, and he survived without any injuries. He ended up living into his 90s. My favorite detail about this story is that he took the train from Hiroshima to Nagasaki. Trains were still running in the aftermath of a nuclear strike. Dinosaurs are older than grass. Every artist's rendition you've seen of them roaming fields is wrong. Most ground-level plants were ferns or flowering bushes, not grass. When I see ferns, I instantly think of dinosaurs, so I must have seen the good renditions when I was a kid. There are only 25 blimps in the entire world. In 1995, a man named MacArthur Wheeler robbed 2 banks at gunpoint. He was arrested mere hours later because he didn't wear a mask. Instead, he decided to coat his face in lemon juice because he read that lemon juice can be used to make invisible ink. His logic was that it would make his face invisible. And reportedly, he said to one of the tellers, "Don't worry, I have a face, it's just invisible." The only thing he did when he was arrested was sigh dejectedly and say, "But I wore the juice." His case is actually still in academic journals regarding the fact that people with low intelligence do in fact believe that they're smarter than everyone else. This man was 45 fucking years old. That only 6 people have survived rabies. Rabies has a 99% mortality rate. You can have rabies for an entire year without symptoms, and once you have symptoms, it's already late. You'll probably die in a couple of days if you have symptoms. More than a year, it can lay dormant for several years. You go on a camping trip and wake up noting you have a scratch on your arm. You put a band-aid on and think no more about it. A couple of years later you feel unwell. You're already dead, there's nothing to save you. Rabies is terrifying. 1/6 of the world's living languages are only spoken in New Guinea. Oxford University is older than the Aztec Empire. It's also about 74 years away from its millennium anniversary. The University of Bologna, founded in 1088, predating Oxford by just 8 years, is 66 years away from its millennium anniversary. I don't think my lifespan will make it to Oxford's, and making it to Bologna's would be a close call for sure. 105 billion people have lived so far. 7.9 billion of us are currently alive. There is more debt than money in the world. It's simpler than most people think too. Sally loans Joe $10. Joe turns around and loans that $10 to Bob, and Bob then loans it to Billy. There's still only $10 in the system, but $30 of debt. There's a hotel in a small coastal town. It's off-season, so it's really slow. A wealthy potential patron enters the lobby, slaps a $100 bill down on the counter, and asks to go see their best room. The concierge takes him upstairs to look. The manager, seeing his opportunity, grabs the $100 bill and runs over to the pig butcher, and gives it to him to pay his debt. The pig butcher takes the $100 and immediately runs over to the carpenter, who pays off his $100 debt for the add-on. The carpenter takes the $100 bill and immediately runs over to the mechanic to pay his own debt off. The mechanic runs over to the hooker and pays her $100 for her services earlier in the day. The hooker takes the $100 and runs back to the hotel and gives the manager $100 to cover her debt for renting a room for some clients. The manager places the $100 bill back on the counter just as the wealthy patron came back downstairs. He grabbed the $100 bill and left. Everyone's debt got wiped out. This is an excellent parable for how it's not the amount of money that makes the economy go, but the velocity of money that makes the economy go. That money didn't do shit for anyone sitting in the rich man's pocket, and one man's patronage, no matter how conspicuously consumptive or luxurious, will never be the equal in volume or regularity as the common needs for sufficiency of regular people. Nintendo was founded the same year Hitler was born, 1889. Tarantulas keep tiny frogs as pets. One that was mind-boggling for me was that up to 150 species of animals go extinct every day. In line with that, 11,000 sharks are killed by humans every hour. Had to look that one up to believe it myself. The Inca invented brain surgery. They were able to remove parts of the brain successfully. That I used to be nothing more than two separate cells in two other humans' bodies. What real fact is the hardest to believe? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.